1 second. All right, so welcome back. It's been another week, but welcome back to the Reds Disciples podcast here. Again, we are a companion podcast to the Reds Disciples Facebook group page. This is a podcast that is for Celtics fans and by Celtics fans. All right, this is for your everyday fan here. That's who we are. We all do love our podcasts. We do some others, but we're not big time writers with Mass Live or Boston.com or any of that. This is your average guy here. And so this is a place where we can all discuss our favorite team. And if you are listening to this or watching this, if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, or if you're watching this on the YouTube page, thank you for being a part of it. Again, like and subscribe, please. Show us some love. If you do not show us love, then I will assume that you are a hater and you need to get your life together. All right. Beyond that, without any further ado, after a 1-week hiatus, I'm going to welcome back Billy to be part of the podcast. How you doing?
Doing well. It's been an exciting week. Happy to be back, man.
Absolutely. Great to see you back. And joining us for the first time is our friend Tim. Tim, glad to have you aboard.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Awesome. And great to have you with us as well. Tim's already been a huge friend to the podcast and helping me with some production stuff. So I look forward to hearing some of his insights on the team as well. Hopefully they're as good as mine, but you never know. But aside from that, I guess since we've had the last chance to really talk, it's been extension city as far as this team goes. It's like Brad is channeling Oprah Winfrey out there. It's like, hey, you get an extension, you get an extension, you get an extension. Everybody's getting an extension right now. And, just to open up it, I make sense if we're going to be an over the cap team. Once you open the floodgates with the Marcus extension, at that point, like you might as well just lock everybody up at that point. But Billy, I'll start with you first, since I didn't get a chance to talk with you last week after the Marcus extension. Just if you could, what are your first impressions of it?
The Marcus extension is just a really good PR move, really, for the Celtics. It's kind of showing that, hey, we take care of our guys. I know there's a little bit of a reputation lately, especially after the IT thing, that you go to Boston and you're just a piece of meat. You get dealt, you can be traded anytime, you can, be dogged on. But I really think that the smart one, and now with Rob and even Richardson, it's kind of like a new atmosphere that we're kind of showing that, hey, you come to Boston, we're going to take care of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim, what were your thoughts? How do you receive this as like a departure from what we've seen the last few years with Danny?
Well, the interesting is Wick pretty much gave Brad his checkbook and said, open it up to whoever you want. The big one is Marcus, of course, because it started everything. So everybody was kind of in love with the infatuation of getting Bradley Beal as a free agent next year, right? And it would have been a very difficult piece to get into. We can get into it a little bit later, but as far as Marcus, at about $18 million a year, it's really not that bad of a contract. Remember, Avery Bradley was overpaid when we re-signed him, and next thing you know, he's a team-friendly deal a year later. Jaylen Brown was overpaid, and now look at him a year later. It right. happens. $12.3 million for Josh Richardson next year. It's a an average deal. He's better than a mid-level exception player, and he's getting paid slightly more than that. And you don't have to hard cap yourself to get him. And then as far as Rob, yeah, he's had some injury concerns, especially, his NBA career. But we've seen when he's on the court, he's electrifying, and he hasn't even really had much of a career with fans in the building, never mind a full NBA season. So I'm excited. It's a team-friendly deal. $13 million a year is not a lot of money. You're not overpaying, because my comp for him is Clint Capella. And when he's getting paid $27 million a year and Rob's getting 13, that's a team-friendly deal, if you ask me.
Yeah. And just to stick with Marcus here for just a second, one thing I liked about the comment you just made, I think it's easy to get sticker shock when we look at a lot of these deals because we tend not to look in terms of inflation over time. We look at the sticker number and we're like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. $77 million for Marcus is a lot of money. But when you look up at the way that the cap obviously increases, and of course, big TV money deal coming soon around the corner, as we've mentioned on this podcast before, like these numbers are really in line. Like I was listening to something by I think it was another podcast the other day, or I read something, I forget which, but they were saying how at one point Kobe Bryant was like 10 years ago was making $25 million a season, and that was the most money that anybody was making. But 10 years later, $25 million puts you at like 43rd in the list of like most expensive players. And so when you look at Marcus, who's, I think his first year, and one of you can correct me if I'm wrong, is going to start somewhere, I think maybe north of 16. Like the most expensive point guards are making, obviously Dame is up there.
They're making $40 million now.
Yeah. He's going to be making 40 something. He'll be making 50. He'll be making over 50 by the time he's at the end of his deal. Like for Marcus is making half that. Like we have to kind of almost suspend our shock and think like, wait a second, what's money doing? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you look around the league, I mean, I don't know if anybody topped it, but currently he was 75th in the NBA in highest paid with this new contract. I mean, I challenge even the biggest Marcus Smart hater to name 75 players you'd rather have on your team than Marcus Smart. So, I mean, it's about there. Is it better than giving forward for 85 to Lonzo Ball? Probably. I mean, it's right in that ballpark. Like
it's certainly comparative. It's certainly comparative. Did any of you guys catch? I think I posted it in the group. There was a snapshot of a tweet, someone saying that Minnesota would have been interested had he gone to the market because they were interested in a culture setter, and they ended up deciding on Beverly in the trade once Marcus got extended. Yeah,
the thing with Marcus Smart is he definitely has flaws to his game, right? I'm usually one of those people who typically defends Marcus Smart. So the big thing is how much he shoots the ball, right? Now, you take any alpha type personality basketball player and you put him on that second unit last year, he's shooting the ball 15 times, right? When Jalen or Jason are in foul trouble and not on the court or not with the ball in their hands, somebody's got to shoot the ball. And Marcus, being the alpha dog that he is,
sure,
he's the one that's taking the shot with 3 seconds left in the shot clock. Yeah, the big thing with him for me is the heat checks. He doesn't need them, so to say. He doesn't need to take a three that's contested on a pull-up. Let's continue to move the ball and get you that shot 8 seconds later when you're wide open. But it all comes down to when you re-sign a player, could you acquire a better player for the same amount or less? And no, you couldn't. right? With the Celtics, like, take football or any other sport, for instance, you let your starting quarterback go because you don't want to pay him $20 million. Are you going to pay somebody that's not as good as him 25? Are you going to pay somebody who's half as good as him 10? But now you're getting half the player and you're spending half the money. It's one of those things where the Celtics couldn't acquire somebody worth $18 million a year that's better than Marcus Smart. So I'm all for it. Yeah, you're not going to win. You're most likely not going to win a ring with him being your third best player. But if you get rid of Marcus Smart, you are then searching for a player to be Marcus Smart on your team. Somebody moves the ball well, is an exceptional defender, and brings nothing but energy.
Billy, can you win a title with Marcus Smart as your point guard?
Yes. As your point guard, yes, but not as your third best player. So that's where I still that the improvement has to come. But there is no way. I mean, you guys see the numbers with Marcus Smart with Jalen on court, off court, Marcus Smart with Tatum on court, off court. And that's one thing Brad is really stuck by, is he wants players that improve Tatum and Brown around them. That's what his whole thing is. That's why you extend Rob. That's why you extend Smart. I believe that they're going to think Richardson's going to fit that mold, but we'll see. But I don't see why he wouldn't. He's a defensive secondary ball handler type player. So you could kind of see the plan. I mean, he hasn't made it a secret what he's doing. He's putting people around Tatum and Brown that help them make it easier.
Right. So after the Marcus Smart extension, everyone's wondering, well, will Rob be next? And it turns out Rob, in fact, was. And so the details for Rob's deal came out. I forget if it was exactly today or yesterday, and I posted an article from that Brian Robb wrote on Mass Live with the details. Initial figures said 4 for 54. It actually turns out that it's 4 for 48, but with $6 million of incentives. Some that are various degrees likely. I think most were unlikely under the stipulation. Likely means something that he's done before, versus unlikely means a stipulation he hasn't done before. For example, I think winning player of the year, defensive player of the year. So
yeah, I think it's actually being on a all defensive team.
Okay, right. Thank you. So yeah, and I've been saying this since this deal came out. Once you're over the cap, I mean, you might as well extend, because all you're doing is just creating additional assets. But I think the first season he plays, I think if this kid can get 60, 65 games out of 82 of solid, good play, already that year's a win for this. That is my feeling. I don't know what either of you think, but I think this deal, the more he plays, the better this deal is going to look for the team.
Yeah. So as far as his contract, it's incentivizes him to play 69 games in a season, right? So that's the big part of his bonus structure in that $6 million. It triggers if he plays 69 games in a season. So he's kind of incentivized to stay healthy. We have $6 million.
Sure.
Probably about $4 million of the $6 million is incentivized on that. His stats don't really blow off the page. 19 minutes a game, 8 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks. But it's more what he brings to the court, right? So when you have him in the pick and roll with Marcus Smart, let's say, Smart's a very good passer when it comes to getting the big men involved, and especially for some reason getting Jalen open shots. But when Robert Williams is diving to the basket in a pick and roll, now backside corner, that defender has to step in and avoid the lob. Now Jalen, Jason, Dennis Schroeder,
whoever's on the wing, whoever's
on the wing is sitting in that corner with a wide open 3, because Robert Williams takes so much attention because of his ability to finish. And, easy points are the one thing you can't give up. You don't give up layups. If you're going to take away the lob every single time, I'm going to bet that a professional 3-point shooter is going to knock one down on the wing.
Absolutely. Billy, is he your starter at big?
He has to be. I mean, I understand that, Horford, the seniority, all that, but there's just no way, because we're planning, we're not planning for winning this year. We're planning for the future. And Rob has to be that centerpiece, because if he's not, we better figure it out now and move on.
Let me ask you both this question. Are you inclined to think a double big with Horford would be the best way to go, or do you think Horford is best served on your bench? Tim first.
So me personally, I'd rather start Al Horford because he can match up with any big in the league defensively. He fits with Tatum and Brown. He fits with Smart. He's a good defender. You're not giving up anything really defensively unless he's really taken a big drop back in his athleticism. I like Robert Williams coming off the bench and still getting the same amount of minutes, right? Robert Williams can't start against a, Karl Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid, et cetera, one of those big name bigs, because he's going to get pushed around a little bit more. I'd rather Williams come off the bench with Schroeder and be an instant spark plug off the bench with energy and, block shots, rebounds, fast breaks, his ability to pass. All those things help create offense for those guys coming off the bench. I am not a fan of the double big lineup because we're not going to take advantage of it enough where it's going to be a mismatch in our favor rather than against us.
Okay, so you prefer Horford starting at 5, basically.
I do. I don't see it happening, but if I was the coach, if I had any say, which I obviously don't, I personally think Al should start. Given, I'm comparing this to the last time I've seen Al really play, which is about almost 2 years ago now. I'm giving the nod to Al and let Rob come in and play his 25 minutes a night off the bench and come in and bring a little bit of energy with the second unit.
Interesting. Billy, agree or disagree?
I disagree a little bit just because I want to take the training wheels off Rob. I know that you have the risk of foul trouble when he goes against the Embiids or the Towns or the Jokic, but it's got the Band-Aid's got to come off at some point. He's got to learn how to control himself, not get in foul trouble, not jump on every freaking pump fake like he loves to do. And then also, I'm really into the Schroeder Horford off the bench. They got a nice little chemistry, and I would like to see them keep playing off that. Now, I'm all for having Al in a closing lineup in a tight game if you need him, especially if he's playing well. But I'm not a big starting lineup guy. I don't think starting lineup means nearly as much as a closing lineup. So I would rather throw Rob out there in the first quarter, let him establish some energy, have him do his crazy pogo stick routine, and go from there.
Yeah, now, I don't disagree. I'm just, I'm with you. The most important thing you said is the closing lineup, right? Who closes in the last 4 to 5 minutes of the game? Realistically, it should be who's playing better that day. If Rob has 12 rebounds and 6 dunks, you keep him in the game. If he has 3-4 blocks, but if Al is putting up steady numbers and locking people up defensively, it's all a matter of the matchup and who.
Now, does Rob's extension put any pressure on Ime to start him over bringing off the bench? Like, I think there was some feeling that once he got this extension, Rob's a starter. You just extended him. He's your core. You've made him part of your core. Do we have to start Rob as in lieu of this extension? Would we have chosen differently had Brad chosen not to extend him? Would this have automatically just been Al?
I hope not, because I don't want the team to make decisions based off of how much money each player is making. I want them to make the decision of who's going to perform better. But if you want to treat Robert Williams like, that young kid you want to just come into his own and it's time to the training wheels, I can't argue against that at all, Billy. I really can't. If Robert Williams, if you want to not throw him to the wolves, but you better perform, get out there and do it. I just hope that it's more, he's part of our future we want to build, not because we just paid him $48 million.
Billy, do you see a training camp battle between those two for start, or do you feel like in the back room somewhere this has already been decided?
That's a really good question. I actually would probably think that they have an idea what they want to do. I'm pretty sure that they're flexible enough where they're going to see how players are playing at camp, how players play with each other, like which lineups might work. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of experimenting. I mean, I know everybody hated Brad for this, but like the first 2 months of the season, Brad would experiment with lineups for and it probably costed us some games up and down, but I think they have an idea who they want to start. I don't think you pay Rob and Smart if you don't think that they're going to start. But I also think Brad is kind of given the keys to Ime to just be like, hey, this is your rodeo. Run the barbecue,
Right. I mean, we're challenged by the fact that we have no inclination to exactly what Udoka's tendencies are, because obviously he's never coached. Yep. The only thing we have to go on is, what we glean from his interviews so far and his understanding as a disciple of Pop and what Pop's done, throughout his career. Pop has been a guy who, his offenses are surgical in the half court. And a lot of it is paced by really good passing big men. When Rob has become one, Rob has, suffice it to say, it's a surprise for me, but Rob is a really intuitive passer in the half court, which I was not expecting that as a skill to blossom the way it has. Some of his dimes that he drops from the high post to cutting wings have been really exceptional.
Yeah, he really has become a good passer, and I think it has a little to do with spending some time with Al younger in his career, because Al is a very good passer. Because Robert Williams wasn't really known as a passer coming out of college. He was known as a pogo stick, kind of like a DeAndre Jordan almost coming out of college, where he's going to block shots, dunk the ball, and get rebounds. And he's been all that's advertised so far. It's just a matter of staying healthy and getting the minutes. And then his decisiveness at the top of the key has really been a spark.
And we all are in agreement, no double bigs, right? Like
no double bigs.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan. I think that's something that maybe you can run 5 minutes a game pending matchups,
or against Milwaukee or something where
exactly.
want Al
against the Milwaukee, something like that. And just kind of as an offshoot to this discussion, a lot of the talk after all these moves is whether or not we need to upgrade at the big forward spot, is that we don't have enough depth there. I've been a little bit of the belief that I expect Tatum to play a lot of his minutes there, but how do you guys feel on whether or not we need to find another big wing to supplement what we have, whether it be either a starter caliber guy like an Aaron Gordon versus an off the bench guy like maybe a Kyle Anderson or someone of that ilk. What is your guys' feelings on upgrading at the big forward spot? I'll start with you, Billy.
My thing is, it's Tatum's best position. So I don't want to do anything drastic. I don't want a starting four that's going to take a lot of minutes and bump Tatum down to the 3, where I don't think his numbers, they're not as good. He doesn't have the favorable matchups he does when he's at the 4. But a 10 to 15, even 20-minute a game guy off the bench, this is where you get into your Larry Nances or your Kyle Andersons, I would even take a flyer on like Paul Millsap. That's where it could come in handy when there is like those physical bruisers, like if he's going up against like a Julius Randle, just somebody to just kind of throw some muscle on him for a little bit. But I want Tatum at the 4. That's where his numbers are the highest. It's where he plays his best. It's where he's the most confident. It's where he gets the best matchups.
Man, how do you feel about that, Tim?
So I agree as far as Tatum at the 4. The thing defensively, I'm not worried about Tatum defensively at the 4 because, Jalen can guard a bigger wing, right? So like a Julius Randle. Smart can because of this positionless basketball that we've gone into over the last couple of years. That whole stretch 4 thing kind of has
It's kind of dissolved a little bit.
It's more a wing and a ball handler, right? So
right.
I thought coming into this offseason, something we had to do is add a veteran scoring wing off the bench. We didn't really do it, but again, we added Schroeder and Josh Richardson, which I do like the additions. As far as a stretch 4, if you want to play Grant or Jabari Parker for a couple minutes here and there at that position, go for it. But defensively, I'm not worried about us guarding 4s because of Jalen and Marcus's strengths defensively. And then Tatum is just as good of a defender as Jaylen Brown. I think he doesn't get as much credit as Jalen does. But, as far as adding a 4, I want nothing to do with Kyle Anderson. I don't think he adds much to this team that we really need. We have another guy who kind of needs the ball in his hands to score. He's more of a I would prefer to sign a cheap Paul Millsap deal or make a trade for another a veteran shooter off the bench because Marcus is going to have the ball in his hands a lot more. Richardson plays better with the ball in his hands, and he's not really a 3-and-D player. He's better. When he was in Miami, he had the ball more, and he was a pretty good distributor. And then Jalen and Jason are going to have to get theirs as well. So it's more of somebody who can complement as a shooter and a defender rather than somebody who is going to go out there and score, in my opinion.
Interesting. And one other thing that I kind of perked up when you mentioned his name, because I was wanting to bring him up, is the feeling surrounding Grant. Grant has just become a bit of a
cast off.
Yeah, like the dog you kick while he's down a little bit. Grant's had a difficult year last year.
So frustrating.
Yes, on the defensive end, especially. His first year, I thought he showed a lot of promise in his ability to rotate, even occasionally protecting the rim as well. But it was a struggle last year, but it was a struggle for a lot of guys. A lot of guys had off years defensively last year for us. I still can't help but feel like we haven't seen the last of Grant, and that Grant will somehow get a shot in this. And I could be wrong, but if Tatum's going to play most of his minutes at the 4, that doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room after that for guys. And if we know that a few of those minutes may go to a double big lineup, what else? There's not a lot of minutes left over, even for a Millsap, although maybe. But Grant, if Ime's, I keep coming back to, if Ime's teams are big on passing in the big interior passing, like Grant on the short roll is something that I think he can be good at. He played a lot from 15 feet and in at Tennessee. I still think he can be good as a short roll guy. I like that he can shoot outside a little bit, but I still feel like he should be primarily a 15 feet and in guy, like a far less springy Montrezl Harrell. But what do you think? What do you think, Billy? Do you think that Grant is done? Do we, is he on the first thing smoking as soon as we can find a trade for him?
No, I don't think he's on that route of he's on the next plane to China with Carson Edwards. Grant showed way too much that first bubble season, especially in the playoffs. Like that game 7 against Toronto, he makes the game-saving block because he gets switched on to Van Fleet and blocks Van Fleet at the 3-point line. Not many big guys can do that. That was pretty crafty. Now, he did have a sophomore slump. He was awful. I don't think having a training camp, no summer league, no nothing, that really hurt him last year. But obviously they believe in him because they didn't even make him play summer league this year. They made Romeo play. They made Neesmith play. Pritchard volunteered to, which I do believe that he, volunteered to. That dude just loves to hoop. But the fact that they let Grant sit out means they know what they got in Grant. They like him. He's the kind of guy that's like the coach's pet. It's never going to show up on the box score, but they love having him out there because all these things that you can't track on a stat sheet, he does.
He's a plus minus monster his first year.
Yeah.
He's so frustrating as a player, though. He really is, because when he came into the NBA and he missed his first 24 3-pointers, and there was like 4 air balls, and they're hitting the side of the backboard. It was bad at first. If we can get the Grant Williams that played against Denver last year, in that game where he shut down Jokic in the second half, and Jokic just went to the locker room in the middle of the fourth quarter because he didn't want to play anymore. Right. If we can get that Grant Williams, then it's different. He's never going to be a 15-point a game scorer. He's never going to be a 10 rebound guy. His 3-point shooting, 37%, was exactly what we needed for a stretch big. But as far as everything else, he only shot like 20% from 10 to 16 feet last year. I think it's like 82% of his shots are on assisted field goal attempts. So he's being passed the ball and shooting. He's never going to create. He's not big enough to really post up in the NBA level. My big thing with Grant is when he gets switched defensively on a wing, he's stuck in mud. I felt like there was a lot of times where he just couldn't move his feet and stay in front of anybody. And he fouls like crazy. I think at one point last year, he averaged more fouls per game than rebounds in 17 minutes a game. It was frustrating to watch. And, when we're in the bonus and he comes in the game, he averaged 2.6 fouls and 2.8 rebounds. So it's frustrating. It's so frustrating as an NBA fan because, I don't want to see a guy come in and take out Tatum or take out Brown and be going in at the 4 and just next thing you know, he has 3 fouls and he's been in there for 5 minutes, or he gets, he just can't stay in front of a lot of wing guys. He's somebody I think teams are going to start to attack defensively.
Yeah, the clip I just posted of him playing golf looks like he slimmed down a little bit. Whether that lends to increased mobility, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. You made another interesting point, Tim, a moment ago regarding his decision to opt out of Summer League. And there's one thing I've also heard a lot about lately is varying opinions, differing opinions on his decision to opt out. And of course, Pritchard's decision to leave Summer League and then come back. Do you feel like, and I know, Billy, we've discussed this at the beginning of Summer League on our Summer League preview episode. And for those of you watching who haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But do you feel that there is a detriment to him choosing to opt out of Summer League? Or in this case, there was a lot of talk in whether or not Peyton Pritchard was, whether he should have even come back, that he was playing above everyone. I know we talked about it, Billy, as well, whether he was playing enough. And then on the last game, he hits off night and has an off night. So I was just wondering, how do you feel about the decision of these two young guys who, we'd like to see something. We'd like to see something in this next season as far as them being contributors at whatever level we can. Is there a detriment to them choosing not to play in Summer League?
So Summer League, in my opinion, is very important for those, fringe rotation players. So it's important for guys like Neesmith and Langford and Pritchard who are expected to have bigger roles next year than they did last year, because they get to do things against NBA level talent in game with pressure that they don't normally have the option to. So yeah, Pritchard can shoot wide open threes, but if he cut it, a certain way of finishing that he may add to his game, or Romeo may get a different feel for something off the pick and roll where he's normally not used in. And next thing you know, Ime may see something on film and be like, Romeo, look what you did in the pick and roll here. If you see this as well, it may add facets to their game, right? But guys like Grant Williams, I thought he was the one, him and Romeo and Nesmith, more so than Pritchard, needed Summer League the most. Nesmith needed it to build confidence and to add to his game, because we didn't see that 17, 18-foot pull-up that he was knocking down in Summer League. We saw him attempt a lot of off-the-screen threes, but they weren't falling. But now they've seen them in the NBA level, especially after taking a year off pretty much, because he missed almost his entire last year of college. Nesmith, I'm talking. It was important for him. But Grant, I felt like, needed it the most out of anybody, because there is so many little holes to his game where if he filled them, he could be a very good rotational bench, stretch 4, small 5 rotational player.
Billy, what do you say to the idea that, well, Summer League tends to favor perimeter guys. And so guys, big, I don't want to say big men, but guys like Grant you don't learn as much from their reps in Summer League and in that kind of setting. What do you say to that?
I think they could still learn things, but it is definitely, I think college basketball is that way too. It's a guard dominated game. It's a different kind of game. The bigs don't matter as much because you have these guys with the ball 90% of the time. Sometimes they're passing, maybe they'll hit you up for a layup, but most of the time they're trying to get theirs, especially the guys that are trying to make a team. And if you're a big man, you're waiting for somebody to pass it to you. You can't create yourself. So I do think Grant could have benefited from it, though. You could set screens, you could hit open threes. But I guess he does that in practice. He played 62 NBA games last year. He probably didn't Summer League, but I would make the argument that Pritchard didn't either. He just wanted a hoop.
Yeah.
The thing with Pritchard, really quick, I think the only reason he played in the last game was because Yam was out.
And that's what I say.
If Madar was healthy and they didn't need a ball handler, or if they had another ball handler, let's say Tremont Waters was still on the team, Pritchard doesn't play that game. I know he had missed the game before because he already had signed up for the Pro-Am, and he wanted to keep his prior obligations, and the team said it was perfectly fine. But going from Pro-Am talent to going against Off Night was probably a big step and a little bit of a slap in the face.
Especially after hoisting like 73 pointers over 2 games.
Yeah, he scored 160 points in 2 games. It was unbelievable. But it's Pritchard. In my opinion, I wanted to see him play a game or two and then just shut him down and say, we've seen enough. You're good to go. We know what you are. Go home, go back to Boston, add to your game a little bit more. Here's what we think you should work on. Watch your film and we'll see you at training camp. Because he wasn't the one that really needed the reps.
And one thing I think that often gets missed is, Mazzulla and Ime and Brad, they have a game plan when they come into this. And I've never seen one Summer League where their stated goal is we need to win a Summer League championship.
Nobody
For
cares.
Sacramento, it was a stated goal. They have no culture of winning, so they wanted to start by winning something. They needed to do that. For us, as far as I remember, and we had a good team in, I want to say 2018, but back then, even as we were approaching the championship game, we started tanking games so that we couldn't play any further into the Summer League tournament. We wanted to just play our 5 games and get out of Dodge. I think they're, and I agree with you, Tim, and Billy, you can tell me if you agree as well. But I think they're focused not just on who are the top 2 or 3 guys who may play minutes. They also have the second two-way contract to consider. They have who's going to get an invite to training camp, because we can bring 20 guys into training camp. They have that to consider. They have who they maybe want to keep and send up to Maine to be on that roster. They got that to consider too. So they're not just looking at only who our top 3 guys, are they benefiting? Are they getting enough minutes so that they can contribute to the big club when we open? Like, they have to look at the JRich Lawsons. They have to look at not just the Sam Hausers who they sign on two-way, but the Eric Holmans and the other guys. I think they even signed some random French guy who played like 2 minutes in the last game. But I mean, right. But I mean, they have to look at this at a macro level in these tournaments, so they can look at everybody.
So who do you think, how about this? Not who, what position would you target for the second two-way spot?
What position?
Is it another wing? Is it another Sam Hauser? Because we're now deep at ball handler. We have enough bigs where I don't think we're going to need to fill that spot. Is it a wing? Are you looking for somebody more athletic defensively? Like a Javonte Green type player for that second two-way deal? Because I don't think they need another Tremont. I don't think they need another Taco, bigger ball handler.
Oh, I miss Taco.
So does Maine. But he was destined to go overseas and get
he just hit me right in the balls with that one.
Yeah, 10 years ago, he's an all-star.
Oh, Taco.
10 years ago, he might be an all-star.
Yeah, oh, man, 10 years ago, he'd have been.
If he played with Sean
Shaq
Bradley.
Diesel, man, just dominating. All right. Don't get me started on Taco. Never mind me. As far as position, we got Begarin, who's going back overseas, but I think he looks like he's going to be a find in a year or 2 tops. Like, he's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I prefer them staying overseas as well.
Right. We didn't need to start that clock on him. But as far as position, I don't know, maybe another big wing or maybe another big wing, perhaps someone even similar, maybe not similar, but someone along the same 6'8", 6'9" component is the only thing I can think. We got Fernando, and I mean, Fernando is by no means a certain to end up staying with this team, but I did like what I saw out of him. I don't know if he has the mobility to play 4 in this league, but certainly 5, I think he could do. I saw enough of him on the short roll that he seemed interesting, enough to think and this is one of my favorite sayings, like, there's a little clay there. There's some clay there. There's something to work with. There's something to mold, potentially. And I always love the idea of getting young bigs to work in under Al. Any opportunity for a big to learn by watching and listening and talking to Al, I think makes them a better player. Like, Al, to me, Al was such a big, important move, not just because of how I think he amplifies the Jays on the court, but I just don't think you can overstate his influence in the locker room. Not just as a guy who's a leader, who's experienced, but, as a guy who's leader and experienced and goes out on the court and, punches his clock and gives minutes. He has that credibility to speak up, which is a reason why I think you can make moves like bringing in kind of iffy headspace guy like Schroeder. But so I don't know, maybe a big. I don't know. What do you think about that, Billy?
I'm all in for another wing, a big wing, 6'9", 6'10", preferably one that could shoot. And also, I'm worried about your boy Fernando, man. I saw some huge red flags in that championship summer league game. They pulled all the starters, they pulled all the decent players, and then they had him out there with the third string in those last 3-4 minutes when it was just garbage time. I'm like, oh, that ain't a good sign for your future.
Yeah, he might be. He's fighting with Carson Edwards and Jabari Parker for who's going to get cut on the roster. I like Fernando. He was drafted one spot behind Carson Edwards in 2019.
Yeah.
I argued that we should have taken Bruno then and not Carson. At the time of the draft, it was
Carson burned me. I didn't.
He burned everybody. I honestly, I would cut ties with Carson and keep Jabari if it was me. But as far as a two-way deal, it might be a swing and miss, but maybe give that last two-way deal to somebody like Dennis Smith Jr., who still has eligibility for a two-way deal. And if it works out, then you can sign him to a full deal in the offseason. Or I would go with a 6'7", 6'8" shooting wing, or more of an athletic wing, somebody like a Javante type, personally.
Now he's another super short guy. Like there's the talk. I thought we're done. He's shorter than Pritchard, I think.
Yeah, obviously. But in a two-way deal, I mean, you're not really expecting or needing much out of him. It's more of a, take a shot at a former top 10 pick. See if you can
just to take a gamble on talent.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real holes to fill. If you're not going to fill it with a wing, then use it on somebody who you could get in the locker room every single day and see if he'll gel with these guys. He's produced at the NBA level. It's just he's gotten a lot of minutes, hasn't done an extreme amount with it, but he might be somebody who, if Pritchard has an ankle injury and Smart's in foul trouble, Schroeder needs a break, send him in there for a couple minutes here and there and see what you can do. Again, it's a two-way contract. You're guaranteeing $300,000 to him. It's not a big contract to write to somebody. I'm taking the shot at it personally.
I can't argue with that. Okay, so the last of our most recent extensions was Josh Richardson, who picked up his option for the last year for 11.6 mil, and then was extended one more year to make his numbers a total of 24 million over 2 years. So coming to you, Billy, first, let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you the same question we did with the big man debate. Is he your starter?
For me, he is, but also if Nesmith has a really good training camp, man, I would like that so much better. I would love Richardson off the bench. Him and Schroeder in a backcourt would just be defensively awesome. With Horford, those three, that's a bench unit. That's a bench mob. But back to the contract, I mean, all that is securing the asset. It lets us have way more flexibility to trade him next summer if there's some kind of sign and trade for, everybody wants to say Bradley Beal, but it could be Levine, it could be whoever. And that's 12 million in salary. That's all very tradable. And
it doesn't hard cap the team he gets traded to because it's not a sign and trade, right? So that's a big thing with a lot of these teams is that they don't want to do a sign and trade because then they're hard capped at the $143 million mark, or it might be 146 next year. That's a big play in this, where now he's more just a contract to match salaries. But I think Richardson's here a little bit more long term than he is a piece to be moved in a trade. I love the point in starting Nesmith. I actually made the point last year and I got destroyed on the page because people didn't agree with me because I wanted to see Nesmith being just an energy guy who plays defense and shoots wide open threes because everybody's so worried about the Jays, and Smart can kind of pick up the slack defensively. And then now you have a bench unit of, Langford, Schroeder, Richardson, Time Lord. That's nearly a starting five on some of these worse teams. I like the idea of starting Neesmith personally, and I think it'll be good for his development.
I agree. I've also been in favor of having Richardson as a versatile wing coming off the bench who can spell either of the Jays, and what he provides. I like that there's so many different connections with him. Obviously, Ime knows him from his time in Philly, and he knows Al as well. And I think I think he makes a really good fit. One thing you did mention, and I think it's one of the conversations that I see a lot of on Twitter, is that by virtue of these three signings and how it eliminates our cap space, and we are now an over the cap team, that we are out on getting a third star completely. Like we are all in on this. Billy, do you, and I know, and we'll maybe get into a little bit. I know Udoka's mentioned, like, he's like, hey, I want this to, I want us to put, basically I'm putting our chips in on the Jays and Marcus and all of that. Do you still think that Brad is considering going to get a third star, or do you think he has, I don't know, he's pushed that to the side?
Oh, there's no way. I don't subscribe to that theory that this is it. I mean, this is it until February, till some of these contracts become tradable. But to think that this is going to be their championship core for the next couple of years, I mean, I love Al, but he's my age. So there's no way these are the long.
How's your post game?
It could use some work. It's probably about as good as Al's. I probably flinch more on rebounds than him. So yeah, I don't subscribe to that. There's no way. They know you need a.
So who do you upgrade, Tim? Who if you were looking for a third star and you're surveying the roster we have right now, who's the right candidate for an upgrade?
So the big thing with next offseason, I know that a lot of the beat writers kind of blew smoke to us and said, we're going to have max cap space, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't really possible. The only way to do it would be to trade Al Horford in a salary dump, which you're probably going to have to give up a first-round pick for. Let Richardson walk. Decline the options on Romeo, Grant, Neesmith, Pritchard, and Edwards, and then not do a qualifying offer to Rob Williams, and then you have about $38 million in cap space. And your entire roster is Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, and the third star. I think what is more likely to happen is use Al Horford as a salary match piece next offseason, and then also use, if Richardson works out, then his value is going to be more than that $12.3 million. That's $38 million in matchable salary that you can use to go get another star. I think it's better to have the contracts to move than it is for the cap space, because, I would rather have a team where we trade Richardson, Horford, and a one or 2 1s, 3 1s, whatever it is, the swap picks in between years, and still have, Neesmith, Pritchard, Langford, Grant, and Rob Williams coming off the bench. Because not having, now you have 5 players on your roster and all you have is minimum contracts. And these guys aren't LeBron James and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, where people are going to come here that should be making $7-8 million and make a minimum contract because they want to play with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Because if that's the case, then they would probably view this team right now as just as much of a contender because it's deeper. I know that everybody's infatuated with Beal. I don't see it possible unless you use Al Horford's contract as a salary match piece. Because only 14.5 million of his contract next year is guaranteed.
All right, so I'm going to put you both in the GM chair for a second. So I'm going to throw a few names at you. Brad Beal, Damian Lillard, Cat, and you know what? For kicks, we'll throw in Ben Simmons.
No, thank you on Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Who's a target? Who are you keeping your eye on to see if they get disgruntled or already are or maybe can make a move for if you had your way?
Billy, I'll let you go first on this one.
No worries. The problem is I kind of think bakers can't be choosers, they say. I don't think Cat would stay. I think they have all these Kentucky connections in the Knicks front office now. I really think he's going to end up being a Knick in the next 3 years, probably even less than that. So I don't think he's on our radar as much as I think we can kind of save his career because he needs it. He needs to get
He's got 3 more years after this year, doesn't he?
Yes.
This year and 2 more.
Yep.
Yeah. So that still wouldn't lend you enough security?
That's who I personally would go after.
It's tough. Yeah, I mean, if you got him with we got Kyrie with 2 years left, and those 2 years went by really fast because I don't think they're going to trade him this year. We're talking about next summer. So you got a 2-year window to win a title.
Interesting.
I think you can sell him on the idea. I mean, Kyrie was just a loose cannon. I can't talk about him without getting aggravated. Personally, for me, out of those 3, I would obviously put Beal as number 1. It's going to be very difficult to do so. Karl Anthony Towns, you could possibly acquire at the deadline and get 2.5 years of Karl Anthony Towns. For salary match purposes, you could use Al and Dunn because combined they'll make 32 million, and Karl Anthony Towns makes 31.6. So personally, I'm going.
Let me ask you this real quick, and I don't mean to stop you, but would you balk at Jalen if they said we want Jalen in this deal?
I'm not giving up Jaylen Brown for Karl Anthony Towns. There's not many players in the league I'm giving up Jaylen Brown for, unless it's a Damian Lillard, and even then, it's now we're giving up some starting level players just for salary match purposes for Lillard. It gets very tricky when, because if we're not giving up him for a Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, I'm not giving him up for anybody other than Bradley Beal at this point.
Yeah, I mean, back then that was the idea of what he was. We didn't even realize what he was back then, and that was also Danny. So this is a totally different regime. I mean, I know Brad is a disciple and all of that, but this is a different deal. In other words, what I'm saying is I don't know how do we apply previous regime's logic to this guy?
Because I think we established the market. If we wouldn't trade Brown for Kawhi or Harden, we can't trade him for a lesser player. I mean, we established where it was. Now, if Jalen falls off a cliff, he has injury problems, whatever. But as of right now, I think Jalen's value is higher than ever.
Yeah, he's 25 years old on a team-friendly deal where he's making less than the max cap space. He works with Jason Tatum. The only one I really question, I don't think he gets along with Marcus Smart very well. They've had their issues in the locker rooms. Yeah, Jalen and Marcus.
Yeah.
They've had their issues in the locker room before. They're both very strong personalities as far as their opinions.
A lot of that is because Jalen often gets lost on defense. He loses his man. And
he does.
Horrible
off ball.
He's horrible
defense,
off ball.
and it's very frustrating.
And Marcus is a stickler. He does not miss. He does not miss when Jalen loses his man. Jalen turns around and Marcus is right there. You lost your man.
Yeah, that's where his deficiencies are defensively for Jalen is off ball. Tatum is at a much better player off ball because he typically reads passing lanes very well. He doesn't get beat back door when his back's to his guy. Different things like that. Those are the frustrations with Jalen. But I think Ime Udoka is going to kind of come in with that idea of fixing it, because I mean it's an obvious known thing. The entire fan base knows that Jalen gets lost off ball. But I'm not
We
moving.
constantly hear how Jalen is one of the best two-way forwards in the league. You don't hear that. It's funny. I hear that less with Tatum than I do
Because
with Brown.
he doesn't look as strong and people think he's going to get pushed around, but he doesn't. People who don't watch games look at Jason Tatum and say he's going to get pushed around or he's not as good of a defender. I mean, you can argue that Jason might be better of a defender because of his ability to play off ball than Jaylen Brown is. And as long as we don't talk about the rebounding numbers in a defensive category, I'm okay with it. I hate that whoever has the most rebounds in the NBA gets all the defensive player of the year. For some reason that started with Ben Wallace, but you know, steals, blocks, rebounds, it's not about stats. It's more about, you know, not allowing your man to score. It's not or losing somebody on defense when you're backdoor, or getting back on defense in fast breaks. Those are the things that I look for when I look at a player's defensive ability.
Mm-hmm. So, Billy, I was going to say, and I didn't mean to cut you off if you had a different thought. I was going to say, what do you think? Who are you keeping your eye on? Anybody in particular, or do you really like this group and think that maybe it just needs an elite role player?
Oh, I'm keeping my eye out for any disgruntled stars. I think we need to do what the equivalent of what Milwaukee did with Drew Holiday. Bring in that third guy that just kind of gives them the boost to get them over the hump. Back to the defense argument, the way Tatum plays the passing lanes because of his length, that's something that I don't think Jalen can do. He just doesn't have he just doesn't have it. And then we know how he gets lost. We've all seen the OG Anunoby shot in that Toronto series where Marcus is screaming. Yeah. And to get in position, and Jalen's, I don't know where he's in La La Land, and obviously they hit a shot with what was it, 0.5 left or 0.3?
Yeah.
But
you could argue we're in the NBA Finals if he doesn't give that up.
100%. Would have been rested for Miami. We would have had our confidence. It really just wore us down. We had to play a drag it out series against Toronto because of that. It's really stupid. But yeah, I think you have to keep looking for that next disgruntled star, because you got to do a little bit of a talent upgrade. You need a guy with Tatum and Brown, I think.
The issue is finding out who it is, right? You know, because somebody like D'Angelo Russell is going to come free. I don't really want to send much for D'Angelo Russell. I don't think he's that superstar that brings us over the edge. Then we're talking about guys like, Vucevic and those caliber players. Malcolm Brogdon, I don't think moves the needle very much. I think I'm more worried about getting good quality rotational players. Being a deep team where everybody can beat you is more important than getting the third star right now. And that's how Toronto has been so feisty over the last couple of years. That's how a lot of these teams got superstars, was because, like Brooklyn, when it was just Kyrie there, when Durant was hurt, there was Spencer Dinwiddie, and they had Karis LeVert, and they had so many good rotational players who could beat you. That's what I think we're starting to build here with Richardson, Smart, Schroeder, etc. I don't want to send 3 or 4 players for one, unless they're going to be here long term and they're going to fit with the Jays. Ben Simmons, no, thank you. I don't even think it's worth a discussion. I don't mean to be disrespectful. Please don't take it that way. The only place I think Ben Simmons works is in Golden State.
That's interesting.
I really do. The only place I see him flourishing is around a bunch of excellent shooters where he can have the ball in his hands and run the offense on the fast break, but then can be used offensively almost like a big man, right? That's kind of where Embiid hurts him, because you can't do a pick and roll with Ben Simmons as the screener and roller, almost like getting the ball at the free throw line like Draymond and finding a shooter or getting
everyone's going to sag.
When it's him and Embiid, you could just back off both of them, and now you're just playing 2 guys at the top of the free throw line. If Phoenix wasn't so good, I would have tried going after Devin Booker, or I don't want to really
Or what about Levine?
Exciting.
Levine's another guy.
Chicago is building something. I think he's going to buy into it. That's my concern with Levine. I don't think
They're building a
free.
roster full of 6'5", 6'6" guys.
And that's what I think the NBA is trending towards. Because
Like,
that's
I wonder,
the
like,
frustration with the Celtics over the years. We've had all these small offensive-driven guards. I think it's going to be a lot more 6'5" to 6'7" players who can just rebound, score, pass, shoot. You know, positionless basketball is really taking over the game.
They got a pickup team going on over there. I don't even know why Vucevic is on that team. Like, he's like, I feel like all their guys are going to be 6'5" to 6'7", 6'8". Like, they're building Houston.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, Levine.
You were talking about this 2 weeks ago, right, Billy? Like, I feel like that's somewhat of a weird fit with DeMar DeRozan. Like, it's a fascinating fit. Like, I'm curious to see how that really is going to work. Like, they got a lot of guys around the same size who play in a very similar way. Like, there's not a lot of variance.
If there's somebody to shake free there, it's going to be Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah.
He signs a deal, gets moved at the deadline, or it's a sign and trade. He might fit underneath.
He's shooting up a flare right now. He wants out now.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys who might fit underneath that Evan Fournier trade exception, but either this year or next year.
Yeah, but he doesn't play any defense.
Yeah, but if you can add him to a defensive-driven team and you're able to keep Smart, Richardson, Brown, Tatum, Horford, Chris Dunn, Robert Williams, and you give up a first-round pick next year or something like that to get him on a 3-year deal and use the traded player exception, I'm all for it, because you're adding that stretch big who can play the 5 or the 4. And, they typically aren't going to be taken advantage of as much when you're trying to do a pick and roll against Marcus Smart or Josh Richardson. If you're able to keep these guys and add Markkanen to the team and another guy who can come off the bench or start for you, I'm all for adding more layers to this team of quality NBA players.
Interesting. Well, all right. So we are near to the end. I don't think I set up a poll last week. I think the only other thing I did as far as a poll was I think I put asking people to whether or not they change their grades after the Marcus Smart, these 3 extensions we've talked about, if they made their grades higher or not. But I don't know if that's worth getting into. I feel like we've kind of exhausted that. So we are at the end of the podcast where we like to do a thing called Post of the Week. And so this is a segment where we look inside our group, Red's Disciples, on Facebook. Please join if you're interested for intelligent civil discourse. If you come here, expect that people who are on here know their shit, just like you've been listening so far. People on here know their shit. If you make an argument, be prepared to sometimes be called on it. I am too. So my post today, the post of the week that I'm calling, was my own. And I can do that because I'm the lead admin and this is my thing. So what I posted was a screenshotted tweet of KG. And we all know KG was just announced. KG is going to have his number retired this year in March. And someone had posted a picture of KG, Ray Allen, Rondo, and number 20. I don't say his name anymore because that's how petty I am. And KG, and is equally a petty move as mine, if not more so, crop that man out of the photo. And I tell you, I am here for it. I hear the arguments, well, we should just let it go, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why. I am all set with continuing to hold a grudge. I am good with it. I am here for it. I don't know how you guys feel, but that is where I come down.
Oh, I'm all for being petty on the Ray Allen situation. When Jackie Mack, and congratulations on retirement, Jackie Mack, when she reported
Here, Jackie Mack,
the GOAT, when she reported that Ray Allen was being recruited and having dinner with LeBron and the Heat during those Eastern Conference Finals, while we're still alive, while we're still fighting and playing, oh, he was
that too.
He's dead to me after that. And then I get kind of heartbroken because actually, I don't know where this came out, but we actually weren't supposed to get Ray Allen as our third guy. It was actually supposed to be Sean Marion. And as a UNLV fan, oh man, him and Pierce and KG. I mean, just the front.
Yeah, that's true.
Ray fit much better, though.
What's that?
Ray fit much better.
True, but Marion would have stayed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still mad at Ray myself. That one hurt, especially because, I'm 27 now. When they won the title, I was about 14, 15 years old. So I'm 16 years old when he left. It was the first time a superstar in New England let me down and just up and vanished on me. So I'm a little upset about him. I know we're a laughing stock around the league about still being upset about Ray Allen, but, people burn LeBron's jerseys. People burn KD's jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
They were mad at their superstars for leaving too. And the fact that we were in such a tight 7-game series against Miami, and then he's like, I'm going to go there next year. That one's what hurt me most. If he would have gone to a different team, it wouldn't have hurt. You want to go pay, took less money to go to a team that we were playing against, all because he was mad at Rondo.
Yeah, because he thought we should have traded Rondo for, I guess, Paul.
Wasn't it OJ Mayo?
Or that's what I heard, something like that. He thought we should have traded Rondo for an upgrade. And I remember Rondo agreed with him going to the bench and starting Avery Bradley when Avery started working out well. And then Danny said, well, we'll see about getting you an extension, but I just want to check in with KG first. KG's our guy. And he, guy was very much in his feelings about all of that. So I'm out. I am done. And hey, this is life. Everybody doesn't get a happy ending. Sorry, not sorry. Not everybody gets the happy ending. Not everybody gets the ending so that you can feel good about it and go to sleep. Hey, it worked out in the end. So it's real life. These things don't always happen.
I might have been a little more lenient if he didn't go 3 for 14 in Game 7 against the Lakers in those finals. If we have 2 rings, maybe I could be a little more forgiving than the fact that we only had 1 and then he just bounced.
But if Perk doesn't get hurt that series, we win it.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. But man, Ray Allen couldn't just buy a bucket that game, man. I don't get it. Like, that was his moment to.
But we can't forget how much he carried us against Chicago. Remember that game where him and Ben Gordon just went insane against each other?
Yeah, I do remember that.
That was
loved him in Seattle too. Like, I have a deep affinity for great catch and shoot guys. Like, I love Buckethead Reggie Miller too. Like
oh yeah, all those catch and shoot guys.
Glenn Rice, Dale Ellis, all those guys. Like, I have a deep, like a irrational love for those kind of guys. And just that rivals my irrational hatred for Ron Mercer. I can't even discuss it, and which also rivals my irrational love for Christian Wood. I don't know if you see me around the Facebook group talking about it, every other post is like, so when are we getting Christian Wood? Because I love Christian Wood, but I'm not a fan of Ron Mercer. Never liked that guy. Didn't like him in college. Didn't like him when he came.
You liked him more when he left.
Yeah. I wanted McGrady.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah.
It's interesting to go back and look at some of those early 2000s teams. Joe Johnson, Chauncey Billups, Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker, Kenny Anderson, Vitaly Potapenko, Tony Battie, Tony Gallup. Those teams were fun. Walter McCarty.
They were. All right. So anyone else have a nominee for today, or is it just me?
No, I'll give some shout out to our guy Jason Sapp. He had a nice post, actually probably earlier today. He did the Vegas over under of the Celtics, 46 wins, over under. What you got? Simple, but effective.
46.
What's the number?
46.
46. And we're doing a regular 82 games season again?
Yes.
Yep. That's
I think we can beat that.
Yeah.
I feel like we can. Like, I really feel like our defense it's going to be top 5 level. Like, I think it has that ability to, with Marcus and, whether Neesmith starts or whether it's Richardson, I think even just the trio of Dennis and Marcus and JRich as perimeter defenders, I think they can put a lot of pressure on ball handlers. And then you add in, you subtract out Kemba's, who was, even when he was even playing, was kind of a turnstile on D, even though he got a few charges. But he got picked on a lot on defense with picks or with post-ups. You add in Al's ability to, call out rotations, and you add in, of course, the shot blocking of Rob, and hopefully, the return to, the defensive, stalwartness, whatever, from the Jays. Like, I think we have a really good defense that can give a lot of the teams that gave us trouble last year. I think we'd be better than, like, Atlanta gave us fits last year on the perimeter. Like, we lost every game to Atlanta last year. And I feel like we'd have them now. Like, I feel like we'd give Trae Young fits right now with our length.
That.
Yeah. So as far as, just really quick on the defensive piece, we're going to be a lot better defensively. Chris Dunn, Schroeder, Richardson, Smart, Langford, Tatum, Brown, Horford. None of these guys are really going to be picked on. Robert Williams, Grant can come in and body up a lot of those stronger guys, like a Julius Randle or somebody like that. And then adding Cantor, I know he's not the best defender, but he's going to help against someone like he did well against Embiid.
Yes.
And his ability to rebound and not allow another team to get another defensive possession is an improvement over what we had, right? So those defensive rebounds, getting off into fast breaks, getting the ball to Smart and Schroeder. I think Schroeder is going to get the ball and be very efficient in the fast break because of his ability, his speed, and his ability to finish at the rim. Cantor getting the ball off the glass right away and getting it to a guard is going to be a nice.
Right. I know that was Thompson's issue all last year. Thompson grabbed a rebound. He was like,
yeah, he didn't know. He took at least 3 seconds to process every time he got the ball.
Yeah.
Cantor, on the other hand, gets the ball, keeps it up high, moves it right away. He's not going to have 11 rebounds a game like he did in Portland, but I also don't see us being. I think we were the 3rd worst team against giving up threes last year as far as 3-point, because I feel like every possession was them taking a wide open three.
Glasses.
They were all wide open threes.
Yeah, we got sucked in on the defensive board. That someone would crash, they'd kick it out. Guys were wide open on second chance points. It killed us last game.
Yeah.
Man.
But as far as the over-under, I'm going the over. I have us about 49 wins. What's going to be very difficult and people are going to get very frustrated at is December. We have 16 games. 13 of them are against playoff teams last year.
Mm.
And that's the West Coast trip because I already started buying my tickets. I got Clippers and Suns coming up. So I know we got kind of like just a death row of it's like Lakers, Clippers, Suns, the Jazz are somewhere in there. It's
Sacramento.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are tough. I'm actually going to probably fly out for one of those games this year. I was going to do it 2 years ago, but then COVID shut it down. I was going to fly to Miami for a game, and then I was going to fly to Sacramento for a game. This year, I might do the Texas trip. I haven't started looking. If they do the Texas Triangle, I'm going to go to all 3 games.
Okay. Nice.
I do think just because we're already in schedule talk, I do think we have a nice October and November where we can
November is our best month. Yeah,
we can get like a little cushion, and then watch the boards in December. It's going to be panic mode because there's going to be some ups and downs. That schedule is rough. That's our hardest part of our schedule, is up to December, up to about Christmas.
Yeah, and people are going to start calling for Brad's head because of it too, and I think it's going to be unfair because when you're going against LeBron and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and the West Coast trip, and it's going to be a difficult stretch. And I think people are going to start to overreact a little bit, especially on like Twitter and some of the forums.
Yeah, they'll want the panic trade.
Get us a superstar. This guy sucks. This guy sucks. No, we all know it happens. It happens every year. The panic guys, they don't have Danny to blame, so it's going to be Brad.
It's gotta say it the right way. This guy sucks, kid.
Especially leaning up to the trade deadline.
Oh man, I miss it.
Especially leading up to the trade deadline, it's going to be tough. But January isn't too bad. It's a couple double headers against the Knicks and New Orleans, Indiana. But we have Sacramento a couple times. January is not going to be too bad. We're going to get back on track, and then I think we're going to have a pretty good February up until the All-Star break too.
Nice. All right. So is that it? Because I don't think Billy did his homework. So you're freaking fired. But yeah, I think that about does it for today. But this has been good. Tim, thank you for coming on and being a part of this with us. You're part of the family. You're in the group. Certainly hope that you will be back on in a future episode. I know you will, Billy, because you have nothing else better to do.
Oh no, we're out here in the middle of the desert. I got to stay in the AC, so this is easy for me.
All right. But yeah, definitely.
At least there's no humidity where you are.
Hey, man, when it gets up to 117, 118, it don't matter if there's humidity or not, man. You just are just.
Yeah, I was in Vegas about 6-7 weeks ago, and it was like 105, 107 every day. It was tough, but when it's 85, 90, 95 in this area, it's tough to breathe.
Yeah,
I believe it.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, we are about a month away from actual camp, so I will still be doing our episodes week out. We'll be posting probably, and I know I've been posting them usually on Tuesday, but maybe it's going to be every Wednesday moving forward, because this might be a little bit easier moving forward, where I set them up Wednesday. But obviously once camp hits, I'm going to try to record a bit more often as camp goes, and as we get into games. Sometimes I may do a review, and if we can get you or other people on board. Again, if you are part of the group and you are watching this is your show too. Like that is the whole deal behind this. I say this is for Celtics fans by Celtics fans for a reason. I'm not saying this just to have my thumb up my butt. This is for real. Like I would love nothing more for the people that make Red's Disciples a place that they enjoy to come and talk about the Celtics, to then come and talk about the Celtics with us. Like that's why I made this. So if you're watching this right now, thank you. And I made this for you. So if you're interested send me a message and we'll set something up in the future. And we're just going to keep this thing rolling. All right. So, Tim, Billy, any final words for you?
Go Celtics.
Absolutely. All
And
right.
Go to your local sports book and get that over 46.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. I'm
Hammer
locking
the
it.
over 46. I think we will beat that. All right. So for Tim, for Billy, this is Aaron. This is Red's Disciples podcast signing off. Everyone